Hey everyone, this is Melody Ann Owen, and I am the host of Confessions of a Book Coach. And what this really is I'm in the process of revising and publishing my book, and this is my journey that I'm sharing with you because a lot of authors are like, what is this journey really like? And so this is what it's really like. And right now I'm working on a book proposal for my book. This is week 16, and I've started reading that large pile of memoirs like mine. So what did I do last week? Last week, I read Ordinary Hazards by Nikki Grimes. Her memoir is written in free verse poetry, and I really loved it. I enjoyed reading her work, and I loved it as she played with language and image, and it was great. So let me give you the update. Ordinary Hazards is a free verse memoir by Nikki Grimes, and it accounts for the first 16 years of her life. So my solo show back in 2019 accounted for the first 16 years of my life. But then when I wrote the book and I sent it out to a developmental editor, she said, consider extending it a little bit more. So I have. So mine actually now goes up to me finishing university, and I won't go into more detail than that, but okay. So Ordinary Hazards is divided into 4 sections. The first section narrates about the first 5 years of her life. It's quite short. I mean, obviously we don't have a lot of memories around those first few years. So, she wants to give you a sense of what her life was like. She was kind of living in chaos, kind of living with her mom, and her mom had mental health issues, and so she was trying to deal with that as a 4 or 5 year old. So of course there are not a lot of memories, but she does have something there. Certainly gives you context for the rest of the memoir, which the other sections are all larger than the first section. The second section recounts her time in foster care from about 5 to 10 years old. These were happier years, although it took her some time to settle into it. These were happier years because the family her foster family really, she was just one of the family. She wasn't a foster child. Now, the third section deals with her return to her mother and her mother's abusive boyfriend, and it covers from about 10 to 13 years old. And the fourth and final section deals with Nikki Grimes' emotional separation from her mother. So to make that clear, what do I mean by an emotional separation? Sometimes when your parents are abusive, toxic, neglectful, you may remain living with them, but you literally you separate yourself from them emotionally, even though you're not separated from them physically. So in the last section of the book, I would describe it as her emotional separation from her mother, where she continued to live with her mother, but she really didn't connect with her. She didn't depend on her. There really wasn't that mother-daughter relationship that you might expect. She reconnected with her father, and she started discovering herself as a creative, as a writer, as an artist, as a capable artist, not just someone who, all her life she wrote and she had journals. But this is like that last section around, 13 to 16. That's when she really kind of decided like, oh, I am a capable artist. I can write. Some of her teachers would look at her work and say, you're really, really good. So the book ends when she's about 16. So it ends much younger than mine does. She does leave the reader with possibility, but she doesn't show that next level of growth, that next stage of young adulthood, which is fine. My memoir does move past that stage into young adulthood, showing my journey to university as well. Okay, so like me, Nikki Grimes has few records of her past. I have very little of my past. She must rely on her fragmented memory, and some of her memories are missing. This is what memoir is about, right? We don't remember everything. Things are missing. We have to fill things in the best we can. So she used a section called the notebook, which that was what she used to kind of fill in things that she couldn't remember or things that she no longer has, details she no longer has. And as she said, she's like a faulty or fragmented memory. We all do. I have a fairly clear memory of the events of my past, although I do recognize that it's tainted with my own point of view. And of course, it's not full. All memoirs are tainted by the writer's perspective. And I appreciate that Nikki Grimes mentions this at the end of her book. I love the free verse and how it allows her to dip in and out of moments and images and while still pulling together a fairly cohesive narrative. She's done a really good job on that. I mean, it's an award-winning book. All writers can learn from her work. And I think that all writers can learn from the work of poets. I think there's something in poetry that using the fewest number of words to say the most you can say. And I love that about her. And I'd like to carry that into my writing, into my memoir as well, next time I revise it for the umpteenth time. So it was published, this book, Ordinary Hazards, was published by Word Song. I was calling Wind Song. Word Song. If I understand, it's a U.S. publisher that is dedicated to poetry, which is really unusual. They may be the only ones. Kirkus Reviews described Ordinary Hazards as, and I'm going to quote here, raw, heartbreaking, and ultimately uplifting. I couldn't agree more. Both Ordinary Hazards and my book are meant for 14 plus because of how they deal with the subject matter. And they're both, I think they can fit into similar categories. And so it was interesting for me to see the categories for Ordinary Hazards. And it was teens and young adult nonfiction, teens and young adult family, teens and young adult biography, and memoir. So I need to keep that in mind for myself. Of course, her book is free verse. Mine is not. Mine is prose. But she's an award-winning author. She's amazing. And yet I think there are things, I think the age groups are similar. She wrote from the perspective of a child of that age mostly. And so I thought that was really good. And that's something I do as well. So I thought those were some similarities. So I think there are some similarities. And I learned quite a lot by reading her book. And I have now put that into my book proposal. So I have a few books now that I've compared to my book. What am I going to do next week? Next week, I'm going to read, I think I have it here. I do. Next week, I'm going to read Hey Kiddo. This is a graphic memoir by Jarrett J. Oh, I hope I say this correctly. Krosokska. I'll let you know how it goes next Monday. All right. Until then, have a fabulous week.